Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Neighborhood Conversations, where we talk about inspirational things with different community leaders who are doing amazing things in community. And today we have the amazing Tyler Colbourne. Tyler is an amazing individual, a leader, someone who I respect in community, a friend I can call on anytime. And he's also the executive director of Healthy Minds Cooperative. And we're so happy to have him here today. Tyler, how are you?
Good. I'm sitting here at my office in downtown Punamukajik, or colonially known as Dartmouth. And it's a gorgeous day. The water looks great. It's sunny outside. I'm a little tired, but yeah, doing all right.
That's good. That's good. And it's Thursday,
Yeah.
and tomorrow is National Truth and Reconciliation Day. So, happy National Truth and Reconciliation Day, everyone who's gonna go there to continue to advocate and continue to stay strong. So yeah, and you're wearing your orange. You are wearing your
Yeah.
orange today. So
Yeah.
that's good representation there. So Tyler, thank you so much again for coming on to the Neighborhood Conversations today. And today's conversation is going to be focused on well-being, also learning a little bit more about Healthy Minds Cooperative and all that
Hmm.
good stuff. And so bits of both, but we're going to get into the conversation and
Sure.
start from somewhere. But tell us about the work you are currently doing in community. Let's start from
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, so I'm executive director of Healthy Minds Cooperative. So when I think about the work I'm doing in community, that's like the primary thing that comes up for me. And when I think about community, I'm like thinking about it beyond just geographic location. I'm thinking about people and identities and like causes and movements. And see, I've been in this role for 2 years almost. And so we're a consumer cooperative focused on mental health and wellness and services and programs for people who experience barriers related to mental health and wellness and also their loved ones. Aside from that, I'm doing other work in community. I volunteer a fair bit. I'm really passionate about social justice, decolonization, climate adaptation, restorative justice as well. I'm a facilitator there for a local organization. And throughout my career, I've done all kinds of different things. I'm a social worker. But before that, I've worked in tourism as a flight attendant. I've worked on tall ships. I've worked as a mental health outreach worker, youth worker. I've worked in shelters. I've been a bartender. I've done a bunch of different things, marketing, communications. And I think no matter what your role is or where you're situated in community, you can make a difference.
Wow.
Doesn't matter if you're, working in a sales position for a telecommunications company or working at the library or, doing door-to-door sales or anything. I think we all have the ability to make a difference. Some positions and roles are maybe better positioned to do it, but for the most part, I believe that everyone has an opportunity to be contributing to a better community.
I like that. And I like that you've played different roles in different industries. I always say it's not about the title; it's what you do with the title and how you
Mm-hmm.
make that title come alive, or how you make that role come alive with your personality. And that stands out, and similar to what you just said. And so that's really amazing. In
Mm-hmm.
the midst of so much things that we do for community, we always have to look at our well-being and looking at our work-life balance and stuff like that. And that has been so important for leaders, executive directors for the past few months. I've been seeing that lately on social media about executive directors talking about rest, burnout,
Mm.
like it's and all that stuff, and knowing how to provide space to say, hey, we're humans as well, and stuff like that. And so, speaking from your point of view as an executive director, what does work-life balance mean to you? And yeah, let's go into that conversation.
Yeah. What does it look like? It looks messy. I feel really fortunate to be able to uphold strong boundaries around work life balance, and I think it's really important to acknowledge that most things in life require a form of work.
Yeah,
From brushing your teeth to making your dinner to walking the dog to like dealing with conflict in interpersonal relationships. That's all a form of work. It's
yeah,
just unpaid a lot of the time. And
yeah,
so we live in a world where some types of work are really valued and compensated,
yeah,
and then other forms of work are not. And so there's like the personal work that we do at home, the work we do with our loved ones, the work we do in caretaking for others. That's often like undervalued, and we have to do that in contrast to our paid labor a lot of the times. And so I'm, I struggle with work-life balance because so much of my hope for a better world is tied to my identity and my role.
Yeah.
So being an executive director, it's so much more than just doing administration and finances and human resources and marketing and business development. It's connected to better outcomes for mental health and wellness and community in our province and in Canada. And so it's kind of hard to turn that off.
Yeah.
And so I'm really good at turning off my work-life balance or turning off my work brain for stuff that I have to produce. I try to work my 7-hour day. I try to stay within 35 hours a week. But it's really hard to turn the brain off. When I see an article or read more about the inequities that are happening, when I think of housing and, food insecurity and income inequality and racism, it's hard to turn the work brain off for that because there's just so many examples in society of where we need to do better. So I find work-life balance, and balance is an idea, kind of difficult. I'm a Libra, so apparently I'm supposed to love balance. I'm really crappy at maintaining it.
Yeah.
However, someone once told me about the idea of harmony versus balance. It's really stuck with me. And the way that I interpreted it when I read it or heard it was that balance is like kind of striving for equilibrium and always going to like a neutral 0 point, where harmony is recognizing that there's lots of different things that can make life discordant or complicated. And sometimes we just have to meet that. And so I don't strive for balance every single day. What I really strive for over time is like more harmony. And so some weeks I have to work a lot extra just because there's funding applications to do, reports, etc., or there's a crisis at work. And you just have to do it. And so I try to find that harmony by matching the need, and putting the energy in that's required at the time. And then later, maybe it's a week later, maybe it's a month later, I try to take more time. An example is I took 3 weeks off in August and had the support of my board to do it and the support of the staff here. And I think ideally we'd have more balance in our lives every single day, but it's hard when there's just so much injustice and suffering that we have to respond to. And it's harder to take care of these issues and respond to them when you're not doing well. So I frequently burn out. So I've had lots of significant burnout periods in my life. And I try to resist that as much as possible.
Yeah, and that's really important. As you could, like you say, it's a harmony. And how are you defining your harmony right now? Like, what are you currently doing to do that work-life balance, work-life harmony, I would call it, and making sure that you like you said, you took like 3 weeks off, but what else are you doing like in between just to make sure you don't lead to burnout and stuff like that?
For me, it feels really important to live into my values and make sure that I'm not just trying to like make things better for me, but also make things better for others. Because it feels good for me to know that other people are doing well as well. So, we have 16 staff here at HMC, 4 to 5 full-timers, depending on the projects that we're working on. But one of the first things I did is gave everyone 5 weeks vacation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like increase the sick time. Because I was like, we're in nonprofits. We're in the for impact sector. There isn't often a lot of money here. And people should be paid fairly. Don't let me say that without, putting a little asterisk being like, no, we should always be advocating for more. But I want to make sure that other people have similar access to rest and recovery as that I do. It's just not fair when you see an organization where an executive director gets all this time off, but the staff don't. That just feels really weird to me. For me, in terms of like trying to tap into harmony a little bit, I'm in school, I work, I also own a business, I'm engaged in lots of other things. I try to connect into things that bring me joy. So it was my birthday this week, had dinner with some friends. I'm trying to draw a lot more and just like sort of sit down and relax as much as possible. Bake good food, hang out with friends, and I'll say as a queer person, given the rise of anti-2S LGBTQI hate and the rise of fascism, it's really hard to find harmony right now. It's really hard to find pause and rest and recovery. And I'm saying that as a cisgender white person. I can only imagine like what my trans and queer friends and peers are, or people of color, Black and Indigenous specifically. Like, I'm struggling to find harmony and balance, and I can only imagine what others who face more barriers than I do are experiencing at the moment.
I look forward to my family's security in the future. That's the main goal as a father.
The empowerment from changing careers has really just made me want to get out of bed in the morning.
I'm looking forward to growing my business. So I want to hire people Like, I was hired. I want to give guys that chance.
Il me fera plaisir de continuer à travailler avec les immigrants francophones en Nouvelle-Écosse.
I am looking forward to the financial freedom that I never had before.
Yeah, yeah, it's really heartbreaking endurance, especially the queer community. I'm trying to grab. I deleted a comment, but I copied and I screenshot a comment, a negative comment today that was made from someone on that same campaign on don't hate and stuff like that. It was really amazing. I'm not gonna talk about that, but it was really eye-opening of how society is still thinking. And I say, like, this is what we're talking about. This is exactly what we're talking about. You're not accepting us for who we are and stuff like that. And it's all about when people see the misperception of who you are, and that's the next question, literally. What's the biggest misperception people have of you? Because sometimes think that you're perfect as a leader when going into your as ED. They think that you're perfect. They think that you have it all together. They don't see. They see the and this is what I tell people: you see the good side of Templeton, but you don't see the struggle side of Templeton. You don't see that. But I'll be vulnerable to share that Templeton goes through those struggles and everything. And burnout. But what is your biggest perception people have of you that you may be aware of?
That's such an interesting question, and I think so much of my response will be rooted in my own perceptions of other people's perceptions. You know, one of the ones that has come up for me a lot in my life is that people often assume I'm an extrovert because I can be out in community, at parties, at events and gatherings. I'm comfortable speaking in front of large crowds. For the most part, I've done performance and improv and comedy, but I'm actually an introvert, and I have been my whole entire life. And I need a lot of rest and recovery time to when I come back from big events and big engagements. And I'm also neurodivergent, ADHD, and I also experience mental illness, depression, anxiety, and I think as a young person, I learned how to mask really well, and pretend that I was an extrovert because it served me. It benefited me to do that. So especially in my early 20s when I was doing community development work and trying to get into the sector more and more, I often performed extroversion. But I would say I'm more of an introvert and often score closer to introverts on that scale. So I think it's a misconception about me. I also think when I was younger, because I perform so much extroversion and often told a lot of jokes and tried to be really funny, I often had people underassuming my intelligence or underassuming what I could contribute because I was a bit of a jokester. I'm still very jokey and whimsical, but as I get older and now that I have degrees, people take me a little bit more seriously, I think. So it's changed over time. I think people often assume that because I'm pretty friendly as well that I can't be direct or intense. And I really can be, especially if it's around social justice or if someone's harmed someone. I can flip a switch if I have to. But I'm also really lucky in that I've shared a lot of who I am online on social media. So I think I'm living pretty authentically and there isn't too many surprises for people. One of the other big misconceptions or misperceptions about me is that people often assume that I don't struggle with mental illness or that I don't have a history of substance use disorder and addiction. And I love dropping that into conversations when, say, it's around conflict or I'm at a community event and people are saying maybe disparaging remarks or things that are critical and negative around people who struggle with addiction or have mental illness. And I love just being well, you're looking at a person who's dealt with those things. But because I think people assume that I'm in a position of leadership in community, that maybe I haven't faced those barriers. So, I like demystifying that a little bit.
Yeah, it's always good to go into conversation with people who make those perceptions and stuff like that. It's so important to educate people. Don't assume, but educate yourself and know that not everyone's perfect. And people go through mental health and stuff like that. Speaking about mental health, you talked a little bit about making sure that your employees take rest and make sure that your employees take their well-being. What are some of the most effective methods you've used to engage employees in wellness activities? Do you guys do wellness activities, or what wellness activities are happening at the organization? Yeah.
I think it's many organizations when they're trying to, support the health and wellness of their staff,
Yeah.
they add more.
Yeah.
Here's a webinar, here's a lunch and learn, here's a
Yeah.
one-off experience that's going to either build your knowledge or skill. And I actually think the opposite needs to happen. We need to take things away.
Yeah.
We need to take work off people's plates. We need to make sure that they have better conditions around them. And so I mentioned earlier, giving everyone 5 weeks vacation, that was hugely helpful. Increasing people's access to sick time without having to ask for doctor's notes, I think that's really important. Everyone at our organization has lived experience with mental illness and or addiction or substance use disorder. And so we're people who are like authentic and living with barriers right now. And so it's not uncommon for staff to need a lot of time off here, which means you can't be putting too much on people's plates, because if people are going to be taking sick time or need a break, you can't be forcing them to do all this extra work and then say, we're trying to help your mental health and wellness. There's a paradox there. There's like a bit of tension. So I think the biggest thing you can do is take things off people's plates and give them more space and more time. Also, better pay. In this sector, as I'm sure you know and many others know, it's like we're sold this idea that you're supposed to do it for less money because you care about the better world that you're working towards. And so often I see organizations posting positions, within nonprofit, within here in Chibuktuk or Halifax for like $18, $19 an hour. But the local Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives in Nova Scotia has identified that a living wage for this city is actually $26.50. So unless you're making $26.50 at 35 to 40 hours a week, it's very difficult for you to be able to maintain a residence, afford food that's going to keep you healthy and well, access to transportation, etc. So any organization that says they want to be improving, the health and wellness of their employees, they should be paying a living wage as much as possible, providing excellent time off, making sure there's not too many barriers to taking, rest and recovery, whether it's through sick time or short-term disability, et cetera. I think that's really important. I also think it's really important to talk about power, because I think a lot of conflict and a lot of tension in workplaces really comes down to just different understandings of power and who has the right and the authority to make a decision or who has power over. So we talk about power a lot at this organization. So that people understand what my role is, what I'm accountable for, what their role is and what they're accountable for, and figuring out the messiness in between.
Which is really important. And that's so good. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that I go next into what's happening at Healthy Minds Cooperative. I know that there's lots of things happening. How can people get involved? How can people get connected with the services that you're offering? And so,
there's a number of ways. I mean, we're a cooperative, and so our cooperative is only as good as our members. And right now we have about 37, I believe. Yeah. So I always encourage people to become members. You don't have to be a member to participate in our programs and services, but I encourage it. It's $5 for a lifetime membership fee. People can reach that at our website, and that's healthyminds.ca. And the membership page is healthyminds.ca/membership. So that's one way. I encourage people to follow us on Twitter, more so Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. We're often sharing content there. Sign up for our newsletter. The other way to engage is join one of our programs. And so we have 3 that are running pretty consistently. We have a really fabulous mental health writers group that's every second Tuesday starting October 20th. Yeah, it's run by Anna Kwan, who's just like such a treasure of a person. And that's runs for 18 sessions over the year. And again, they're free to participate in. You don't have to become a member. We have a peer group for men that's every second Wednesday evening. We also have just a regular Peer Connect. That's every second Wednesday at lunch. We have another program called Affected Others. That's for people who are family members or loved ones of someone who's struggling with addiction, because there's not enough supports for people who struggle with addiction and substance use disorder, but there's even less supports for their loved ones. So we run a really cool program in partnership with the Health Authority to support parents and friends and family members of someone who's struggling with addiction. So that's a really great program to join. They have another one starting October 18th. But otherwise, yeah, becoming a member and just staying involved and engaging with our communications channels is a really great way to stay connected. Also, love when people donate. You can do that right on our website as well. Yeah, that's probably the best ways to stay involved.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Before you go, Tyler, it's always good to leave a quote, message, tip with our people, with our community, to inspire them. What do you got for us?
Mm-hmm. It's a quote, but it's also a question, and it's from a resource from a website called Gesturing Towards Decolonial Futures. So if you just go to Decolonial Futures in Google, it should pop up. But they have a series of resources, and one of them is this deck of cards called the Without Modernity cards. And so there are a series of reflections and prompts that can help you think about complex situations or challenges. And they have one that I use all the time. It says, what problems do your solutions reproduce or generate? So I'll read it again. What problems do your solutions reproduce or generate? And the quote really speaks to this idea that as we create interventions or programs or services, there's always a possibility that we're re-perpetuating harm, contributing to suffering, or increasing or reproducing barriers for access. No intervention or solution is without risk. And I think it's really important in the helping for impact and nonprofit sectors to always be questioning, what other problems might this solution be recreating? So I love that one.
Wow, that's an amazing resource. I'm definitely gonna write it down and take that with me in my resource tool pocket. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on to the conversation today, Tyler. Much appreciated as always. Everyone, thank you so much. We'll see you in the next episode. Remember to continue to be the best version of yourself. Continue to take care of yourself. Continue to have harmony inside of what you do in this life. Have a great one, and we'll see you at the next.
This podcast is funded by the Government of Nova Scotia.